Hello and welcome to Korean Cinema Today, the official podcast of the Korean Film Council. I'm your host, Pierce Conran, and today we have a very special guest with us today. Once again, we'll be chatting with Korean film expert Darcy Paquet. But before that, a few little notes about koreanfilm.or.kr. That is the website of the Korean Film Council. It's the English language website. You can check out the website for the best. It's a best resource for Korean films. You can get news and features and interviews. We have a webzine and a newsletter. And of course, you can look up the various episodes of this podcast. Now, this is the last episode of season 2, but we'll be back, of course, in a few months again. And so we're going to be catching up again. We talked last time we spoke with Jason Betcheves about Cannes, ahead of Cannes, and now Cannes has passed. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how those films went down at the festival, the Korean films at the festival, with Darcy Paquet, a noted Korean film critic here, and of course a consultant for the San Sebastian International Film Festival, the Udine Forest Film Festival, and the author of New Korean Cinema, Breaking the Waves. So welcome, Darcy. It's a pleasure to have you on again.
Thanks, Pierce. It's good to be back.
Well, since you've been gone, since we last spoke, you went to the Udine Forest Film Festival. So let's start there. How was that this year?
No, it was a lot of fun this year. There were 10 recent Korean films that screened in the festival, and we had 6 of those directors in attendance. And in general, I would say that the audience really liked the Korean films that were on offer. There's no jury at the Far East Film Festival, but there is an audience award. So among the 50 or 60 films that screen at the festival, the top ranking films in the audience vote receive awards. This year, for the first time, the top 3 were all Korean films, which surprised a lot of people. It perhaps may have been part coincidence, but certainly it was good news for Korean cinema.
Absolutely. And remind me, what were those films again?
The top film is Ode to My Father, which of course was huge in Korea as well.
Yeah.
But I think it may have surprised some people that it worked as well as it did with a foreign audience, because the subject matter is very specific to Korea.
That's true, because I kind of hadn't anticipated that it would do so well overseas, but it's also screened at the Berlin Film Festival, so clearly I missed something.
Yeah, and I think both the humor and the drama code worked well with the Udine audience in particular. Number 2 was The Royal Tailor, which was a film that didn't do well in Korea, but it's funny, the director Lee Won-suk, this is his second feature film. His first film, How to Use Guys with Secret Tips, won the top award at Udine in 2013. And he's become very popular with the audience there. He said he feels a little bit like Cinderella in the sense that when he goes to Udine, he's very, very popular and everybody loves him. And then,
he's a very gregarious character. And his films, his films are wonderful. And it's true, they work very well with international audiences. Yeah. But unfortunately, neither have clicked here in Korea.
Yeah, hopefully his third time will be a success, because I think he has a lot of talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the third one was the new film by Lee Jae-young, the melodrama.
My Brilliant Life.
Thank you. Sudden mental block there. My Brilliant Life, which the director was not there at the festival this year, which was a shame, but the audience really did connect with it quite well. Udine is one of those audiences that, in contrast to like the European fantastic film festivals, the audience is really just as interested in melodramas and comedies as they are in other kinds of genres.
Absolutely. I went only one time to Udine. It was the first time we met in person, actually. And yeah, it is quite an eclectic mix, and everyone kind of really gets into everything. And so it's really, really fun. And was one of those films also the winner of the Black Dragon Audience Award?
Actually, not the Black Dragon Award. The Royal Tailor picked up the My Movies Award, which is given out by Italy's top website. And the Black Dragon Award went to another Southeast Asian film.
Okay, all right. So there was a little bit of variety there. It wasn't not a complete sweep by Korea. But speaking of Korean films at festivals, have you had a chance to see any of the Korean films that screened at the Cannes Film Festival last month?
Well, as of the moment that we're recording right now, I've seen 2 of the 4. 2 of the 4 have been released in Korea, and the other 2 will be opening up somewhat later. And so I wasn't at Cannes myself, but I was able to see The Shameless and also Coin Locker Girl. The Shameless was one of the two films that was in uncertain regard. And of course, I think what gets people excited about this film is the casting of Chun Do-yeon in the lead role. She appears together with Kim Nam-gil. But it was also an interesting title in the sense that the director, Oh Sung-wook, has been long dormant after making his debut film in 2000, Kilimanjaro. And so after 15 years, he's back with the second film. And for those who still remember his debut film, it's interesting to compare them, to see, what kind of film he makes in the present day. But yeah, in general, I did like the film, and I'm not sure it'll rank among my top, favorite films of the year, but certainly Chun Do-yeon's performance was brilliant as usual, and she's always worth watching in any film.
It's remarkably consistent. And this is her fourth year at Cannes, I believe. Her first time out, she won, of course, the Best Actress prize for Lee Chang-dong's Secret Sunshine in 2007. She came back to competition in 2010 in Im Sang-soo's The Housemaid. And last year, she had the honor or distinction of being on the international jury for competition. So there were no awards this year for Korean films, and there were 82 films at Cannes, so it's not a big deal. But Korean films have had actually a pretty good run. There was a streak there, with like 6 or 7 years, where either a feature or a short did pick up an award. Mm-hmm. But how would you rate the reception of the films overall this year?
I don't think it was very strong. I think we have to be honest that it wasn't a tremendous amount of excitement over these particular titles. I think that the films that did screen there mostly fall into the category of genre cinema that's made somewhat more interesting or unique by, some added element. And in the case of The Shameless, in some ways it's Chun Do-yeon. I think that the way he plays with mood and the way he approaches the subject matter is somewhat unusual. But in the end, I think all of these films are, in some ways, perhaps Madonna to somewhat less extent, but all of them are attempting to be commercially viable films at the same time as being artistically interesting. And, that in itself is kind of you can make a lot of interesting films of that type, but, the films that really get the strong response at Cannes are ones that really kind of go all out in trying to make, a very unique individual film with a very strong personal stamp on it. And I don't know, if we look at some of the other, big films in Cannes, like Ho Xiaoshen's Assassin, I don't think he was worried too much about, making this commercially viable. I think that he just made the movie that he wanted to make. And in Korea, it's difficult to do that unless you're kind of at the very top.
Well, exactly. Ho Xiaoshen, he's at the top of Taiwanese cinema. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's perhaps a reflection on the festival itself, or how the people who visit the festival, how it's not so much that the films maybe got poor receptions, they just didn't get a lot of coverage to some extent. I think the one that got the most coverage was The Shameless, and the reason for that was primarily because of Chun Do-yeon. But there were no films from the likes of Bong Joon-ho or Park Chan-wook, and those are the ones kind of get the eyeballs on them. So those are the films kind of go to official competition, and the ones that people kind of get excited to see. So, there was a lot of the people that I know went to Cannes. They didn't really go and see much of the Korean films because it wasn't, people were more interested in seeing Gaspar Noé's Love, of course, things like that.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I was lucky enough to see all the films, and I really like Madonna. And I'm pretty sure that will be close to the top of my list at the end of the year. Mm. And I wasn't the only person that liked it, but not many people saw it. Mm. So I'd be curious to see, how people will like it when given a chance, hopefully in the next few months.
Yeah, one thing that Cannes can do is it can, elevate a director's reputation, which can help them to go on and further their career. And, if we look at the Korean films that were invited this year, I think that the invitation to Shin Soo-won, who was in Uncertain Regard for the first time. I think that this is really kind of an important step for her. And, the film, it didn't receive rapturous reviews, but they were broadly positive. And I think that there was a sense that, she is a worthy talent that's worth keeping an eye on, and that she's continuing to make interesting work. But, this with her third feature, you can sense that she is, becoming a more and more important filmmaker. And so I guess we have the festival to thank for kind of moving her to a bit of a higher stage.
Absolutely. I mean, she went to the Croisette before, of course, but it was her first short film, The Circle Line. That was 3 years ago, and she won the Canal Plus Prize, and that was in the Critics Week section. So a different section in the main program, or in the Un Certain Regard part of that. But it's very, very much like the job of a festival to kind of find, identify talents and kind of put it out there. And so I'm certainly glad that she has gotten more exposure. Again, I think it's a wonderful film, and hopefully more people will see it soon.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, do you think any of these films will be able to travel wide outside of Korea?
I mean, my feeling is that probably Madonna is the one that will get the most attention going forward. I mean, The Shameless, I think... Again, I think most of the interest will continue to focus on the actress, Chun Do-yeon. But in terms of The Shameless, I think it will work well with festival audiences. And, it sounds like it. It's a very, what can I say? It's a film that will appeal to kind of artistic festivals, but also it kind of has an edge to it as well. So that it can appeal to different kinds of viewers and different sorts of circumstances.
It also has the on the marquee name with Park Chan-wook as a creative producer, which is perhaps a bit of a misnomer because I think he wasn't really involved after a certain point, but he was kind of involved in the kind of inception of the project many years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a name that people recognize, and maybe that'll afford it some more visibility.
Yeah, and it was similar in some ways with The Office, where it's his debut film. Director Hong Won-chan, but he had worked on the screenplay together with Na Hong-jin for The Chaser and The Yellow Sea. And so probably it was that association that gave him a little bit of a boost and that allowed him the opportunity to get invited here.
It did, although the strange thing is about The Office, because I was quite excited because of his involvement. He's a terrific scriptwriter, obviously. And given the kind of this interesting kind of chamber drama, thriller horror kind of a concept, I thought that you could do something pretty interesting, kind of a play of genre the way he does so well. And there is some of that, but ultimately what I realized when the end credits roll, it's like that's, when it says a kakbon writer, it's like it wasn't Hong Won-chan, it was someone else who wrote it actually.
Yes.
And so I think he did some work on it eventually, but and I do forget the name of the writer, but it was also the producer of the film. And she also wrote and produced Steel Cold Winter.
Yes.
I remember people were contacting me saying, "Oh, this is what's this? This The Office guy who wrote Yellow Sea and Chaser?" I was like, yeah, but apparently no.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I mean, in the case of Oh Sung-wook as well. I mean, a lot of people remember him as, the co-screenwriter of Christmas in August and Green Fish. But I think that, there's an open question about. We don't know how much of his input was. And I mean, certainly in the end, it's the director who, even if, the director's working with a script written by someone else, it's usually the director's personality that ends up stamped onto the film.
Absolutely. It's really hard to tell. So, of course, a Cannes invitation is a great honor and brings plenty of exposure. And I guess, do you expect that we'll be hearing more of these filmmakers in the near future? I think we've already spoken about Shin Soo-won. We're expecting she's kind of been elevated, and we'll be hearing a bit more about her. But what about these other filmmakers?
Well, I'll be interested to see what happens with Han Jun-won because, Coin Locker Girl was another film that I don't think it received a great response, but, the acting was praised, kind of the look of the film was praised, and the concept was generally thought to be interesting. This is his debut film. And it did rather well in Korea, I think, considering that it wasn't a really big budget film. It was
part of the CGV art house label, which is, I guess you'd call it like Fox Searchlight Pictures, something like that.
It is somewhat similar. It seems that CGV Art House is trying to set up a production line that puts out, not really low budget films, but not kind of big mainstream films either. Something in between. Commercial films with a bit more of a kind of personal stamp by the director. And so I think his film reached expectations. I think that the invitation to Directors Fortnight was certainly a great honor for him.
Critics Week, it was this week.
Oh, Critics Week, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And moving forward, it certainly seems that maybe he'll have an advantage when he's trying to get his second film, financed and produced. So,
Absolutely. It's so crucial, obviously.
yeah, so hopefully he can build on this and go forward with that.
And with CGV Art House, they've been, in terms of Cannes at least, quite a run because this is 3 films in 2 years now because
Yeah.
The Shameless is also a CGV Art House title. And my favorite film from last year, and I believe yours as well, was A Girl at My Door, another CGV Art House title.
Yeah.
So they are certainly, they seem to be doing something right at this point, at this juncture.
No, they are. And I think that they're filling kind of an important gap in the Korean film industry right now. And so I'm looking forward to see what they continue to produce over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. And so now one thing that was interesting about the films, the Korean films are invited to Cannes this year, is that most of the principal characters in those works were women. And, a few of these films are just like, it's like a dual protagonist, 2 women, and one of them, of course, is also directed by a woman, that's Shin Soo-won. So given that there's been sometimes something of a paucity of strong female characters or even female directors in Korea, do you think that's an encouraging sign, or is it just happenstance?
I think you can read it as an encouraging sign. I don't think it's a major sea change or anything like that. It's an interesting situation in Korea because the audience as a whole, I think, is around 60% women in Korea. And certainly there's a lot of talent, talented women coming out of film school every year, in terms of acting. I think that, many of the actresses kind of are the most famous, figures in the film industry. And Korea certainly has no shortage of talent. And it's the question of, can actresses get enough interesting material to really shine to their potential? Can women directors get enough of an opportunity to direct really interesting work of their own? And, I don't think that the situation is very balanced in Korea. I think men continue to kind of hold the advantage in this. But that's true of every country in the world, sadly enough. And actually the situation in Korea is probably somewhat better than it is in most other places. I think that, the emergence of Shin Soo-won is quite exciting. I really hope that her career continues to rise because although there are a lot of women directing in Korea, there are a few who kind of reach up to the elevated levels that are occupied by Bong Joon-ho and other directors like that.
Absolutely. There's only, it's kind of a small group of important female filmmakers that have actually encountered box office success. I guess we'd have Bang Eun-jin would be in that list, and of course Im Sun-ye, and I'm forgetting her name now, Byun
Yeong-ju.
There we go. Those are probably the three main contenders for kind of at least for commercial films.
Yeah.
And they've been relatively, resilient and consistent. Hopefully Shin Soo-won will get a bigger shot at bat. Although her film did get a decent budget, I believe it was about $400,000. And the backing there, it's not from a major studio. It's Little Big Pictures, which is, of course, a group of about 10 production companies came together, in kind of frustration because of the vertically integrated system in Korea. They kind of came together to try and kind of make their own films and distribute them themselves. And it's been a rocky road, certainly, but I think they knew that was happening. And hopefully, when this film is released on June 25th, hopefully it'll buck the trend.
I know, I'm really cheering for this film to do well because, not only for the director and because it sounds like a really interesting film, but also because these type of films need to be supported, and this type of distributor needs to be supported. So, fingers crossed.
So for anyone listening who's in Korea, please go see this film on June 25th. It's doing us all a favor. But beyond the red carpet, there's a whole lot of stuff going on at the Cannes Film Festival, and a lot of that takes place at the market, a very, very busy market that goes on for something like 10 or 12 days, which is much longer than usual, 3 or 4 days of a market. So a lot of distributors are there showing off their wares. The Korean Film Council is there, of course, and the festivals are there. And a lot of new films are trying to kind of sell off to international distributors. Any particularly exciting titles that seemed interesting for buyers, you think, this year?
Yeah, well, I think that, among the big films coming up, Assassination is one of the really big films lined up for the summer. This is from director Chae Dong-hoon, who was tremendously successful with The Thieves. Not only in Korea, but also in other parts of Asia. And like that film, he's assembled this really kind of big cast. with some of the same actors returning, like Jeonju and Lee Jung-jae, and some new ones as well. But that film is certainly appears to have the edge in terms of the summer blockbuster status, and it is, getting a lot of attention from, I think, other buyers as well in other countries. And so that's a film that, again, it's not done yet, but I think that it's getting close enough that, buyers in other countries are really kind of lining up. And then CJ has quite a few titles as ready. I think that,
of course,
as usual,
as usual.
And so they had a busy Cannes as often.
I know they had. They had, of course, 2 titles in the lineup, but they had a market screening for Veteran. I know it's a buyers only screening, but hopefully maybe they're excited about that one. We don't know when that's coming out yet, but we're assuming it's this summer.
Yeah, certainly it's one of the most anticipated films in the near future, and it looks like a film that would have great box office potential as well. And so the summer is just the sweet spot to release your best big films, and so. Even though it hasn't been announced yet, that's kind of the expectation where it's going to go. Apparently in Cannes there was also, a private screening to buyers only of Kim Gi-duk's new film, Stop. And maybe not a really big film in a commercial sense, but certainly another movie that is getting a lot of attention from other festivals. And, I'm sure that we'll be seeing it very soon popping up somewhere.
Certainly a fall festival candidate, perhaps Venice again to make it, 4 years on the trot?
Yeah.
And another one that had a buyer screening was Seoul Station. So that's the new Yeon Sang-ho film, who of course made The Fake and The King of Pigs, and who's currently filming his live-action sequel to Seoul Station, which is called, I believe it's Train via Busan is the working title, which if they're listening, I hope they'll change that title. But I'm very excited about the film. A lot of films are a mix of kind of the art house and the big budget movies. But speaking of these kind of big films, we're still in this kind of early Hollywood part of summer. Summer, it starts earlier and earlier for Hollywood films, looking, of course, at the smashing success of Furious 7, which is close to $1.5 billion worldwide, and is the most successful film of all time in China.
Yeah.
After mid-July, that kind of changes in Korea, where the real summer begins for at least the local industry. And so what are going to be the big films that are going to score the crowds this summer? You've already mentioned Assassination.
Yeah, it's funny. This year we don't have as many kind of really big films lined up as we've had in the past. And I guess they're emerging, but Veteran seems like it will be one of the others that will come out. Probably not, directly competing with Assassination.
One would hope. They could be a little similar.
I think the other film companies may give Assassination a wide berth because that is clearly the biggest. CJ has another film called The Piper, which they've announced that they will release in July, although perhaps earlier in July. This is a really interesting idea. It's based more or less on the Pied Piper legend about the piper who comes and rids a village of their rats, but is then let down by the villagers, and so he comes back and kind of gets his revenge. It's set just after the Korean War in a very small remote village, and so it's not like an old fable or a fairy tale, but it has a bit of that quality to it, and it has a lot of rats. So yeah, that'll be an interesting title that it looks like it may do well with the audience, and I think that genre festivals may be interested in that one as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I remember one of the first stills I saw of it featured Lee Seung-yong with kind of a clown makeup on him, and it just reminded me of Fellini's La Strada.
Yeah.
Now that's perhaps neither here nor there, but that kind of got me excited. And I guess another big one that's probably going to be in August is The Long Way Home, which was initially called Western Front. I think that's still the Korean title. Yeah. And that's from Lotte Entertainment.
Yeah, another Korean war film. It's interesting that Korean war films have a kind of checkered history in terms of recent years. Some of them have done really well. Others have not. But I think that if you can put an interesting twist on it, then certainly you can make a very kind of big epic film that gathers a lot of people's attention. And one thing that people have observed about Korean blockbusters is that there needs to be some uniquely Korean element to it to make them succeed. If you make a movie that feels like a Hollywood blockbuster and could be set in any country, then usually it doesn't do as well as specifically Korean stories.
I think very much a case in point there is the big Korean War filmmaker in Korea, Kang Ji-kyu. His massive hit Taegukgi Brotherhood of War, very much a story of North and South, and became the most successful film in Korean history in 2004.
Yep.
And then his next film was, as you say, kind of a more Hollywood-style hodgepodge, My Way. It was World War II, so it wasn't specifically Korean. It was just a Korean character who happened to be involved in these events all around the world.
Yes.
That didn't do very well.
Right, and I mean, that may have been part of it, that, it was a really big, ambitious international production.
Very expensive, maybe $30 million.
Yeah, and so that was a big disappointment for the filmmaker and the companies that supported it. But in retrospect, yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't pull the heartstrings to the extent that Taegukgi did. And it was a story that seemed kind of interesting in the abstract, but perhaps in the course of it, it kind of lost its connection with the audience.
Absolutely. And so, speaking of films that have been a bit of a disappointment, returns have been a little bit slow so far this year for the Korean industry. Of course, at the beginning of the year, following January and through kind of the March, April, May time period, we tend to look more towards Hollywood films. But it has been a bit low. And do you think it's anything to be worried about, or just kind of the general ebbs and flows of the marketplace?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of critics are worried, certainly. And you hear more and more critics kind of bemoaning the state of the creative process or creativity in the mainstream Korean film industry. On the other hand, it's certainly not uncommon at all to have 4 or 5 months go by when you don't have a big major hit and when returns as a whole are down. Looking back over the past 10, 15 years, you find a lot of those valleys, and often they come just before this huge takeoff. And I mean, looking at the lineup for later this year, certainly there are a lot of films that I'm excited about for, starting this month and going all the way up to the end of the year. And so it may end up looking much more positive by the end of the year. When we look back on 2015, I think that there will be a lot of interesting product. On the other hand, I think that the critics' concerns are well-founded to a certain degree.
Certainly.
And so, I don't know, my feeling is that the average Korean film is not as interesting as it used to be. And that, the exceptional cases, Veteran by Yoo Seung-wan, which I haven't seen yet, and, Goksong by Na Hong-jin, I have very high expectations for them because they appear to be really special projects. But yeah, it's becoming more and more difficult to kind of pull yourself to all of the films that are released in theaters because it seems that the average Korean film has kind of dipped somewhat in quality.
Yeah, and there's one thing is this year there's been period films have been having a bit of a hiccup so far.
Yes.
After the highs of last year. They were kind of going up, starting with Masquerade in 2012. There was and then The Face Reader, and then all these huge hits. But now we're coming on the back of a few pretty major failures.
Yeah.
Sadly, The Royal Tailor, a film I really enjoyed, did very badly. And then even more poorly were Empire of Lust and The Treacherous, which is just about still in theaters.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were very, very expensive write-offs for their companies. And there's a lot more period fare on the way. Is it the beginning of the end?
Well, I don't know. The film that I'm quite excited about is Lee Jun-ik's new film, which I believe the English title is The Throne.
Yeah.
And this stars Song Kang-ho, who always brings so much into every film that he appears in. But, it's a story from Korean history about, King Jeonju and Sado, and it's a story that people will be familiar with, but I think that this approach will be somewhat different, I think. From interviews, we can get the sense that this will be focused much more on the drama and perhaps less on the spectacle. And I don't know, it seems that one thing that seems to have sunk Empire of Lust and The Treacherous is that they push the spectacle a little bit too far. And there's a sense that audiences are beginning to tire of I don't know, they're beginning to want a little bit more.
But there's
than
no
just
substance.
the-
It's just, it's superficial.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited about The Throne as well. And I think with Lee Jun-ik, who of course made The King and the Clown, which was the original hit period film, and Song Kang-ho is coming off a 30 million admission year in 2013, I'd be surprised if it didn't do well. And I think we're looking at a Chuseok release for that, probably.
Chuseok would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. That was, of course, The Face Reader, also Song Kang-ho's period film, was released that time 2 years ago. So yeah, but and there's a lot of them coming, and I'm be curious to see if studios are going to stop greenlighting them. But they just greenlit a new one. Kim something. What was it? Something with Cho Jae-hyun and Yoo Seung-wook. What was it called again? Kim.
Okay, I don't remember the title.
But it's another period movie.
Yeah.
It's about con artists and Joseon era something. I don't know.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I mean, period dramas they're certainly well-established staple of the TV drama industry. And in the film industry, they've been more kind of trendy in the sense that there'll be a lot of them produced over a period of time and then very few for a few years. Certainly, I think there's enough potential in the genre, like in the period film, type to just continue going on and to be successful, on a very steady basis. But there has been quite a lot in the past couple of years, and so it'll be interesting to see if viewers are starting to get tired of that.
Yeah, that's what I worry about, because I mean, compared to other genres, this is a very expensive one. I mean, typically it costs about 10 million or more to mount one of these productions, which is blockbuster level budget for Korea. But we have time for one more question, and to shift it right onto the other spectrum, did you have any the Jeonju Film Festival took place not so long ago. Did you have any chance to see any films there?
I did go to Jeonju, and I didn't get to see a lot of films because I was there just very much at the end.
Because it overlaps for you, Udine, right?
Yeah, so I came back to Udine and then went down to Jeonju as soon as I could. But I did get to see a couple of the films that picked up awards. And one was Alice in Earnestland, which picked up the top award from the jury. A bit of a controversial film. I mean, some people like it very much, and some people seem to very much not like it at all. It's a great lead performance.
Oh yeah, she's terrific.
Yeah, and it's a very quirky film. So we'll see. It's a debut film, and it'll be interesting to see if other festivals pick this up.
It's a student film from the Korean Academy of Film Arts, of course, which has produced a lot of interesting filmmakers. And I thought it was an interesting film. It perhaps owes a little too much to Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Perhaps this is my interpretation of it. But it's an interesting film. Anything else?
I also saw To Be 16, which is it's a film that came out of Dankook University. Actually, last year as well, A Fresh Start was the film that picked up the top award in Jeonju, and it was also out of the same university program. They did 10 minutes as well. And so that university has a good track record of putting out successful features. And I really liked this film. It was a story about a high school boy who his best friend's girlfriend, he develops this sort of friendship with her, and then he learns one big secret of hers, and you end up with this interesting situation between the three different characters. It's a very realistic film in its presentation, but I think that it kind of pulls you in, and it feels very kind of absorbing and real.
I'll have to check that one out. Actually, Dankook had 2 films at Jeonju this year, and I think I did see the other one, which was called Under the Sun, but I'll be curious to check out To Be 16. Was there anything else for you?
And the last one was a documentary called With or Without You.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, this was picked up by CGV Art House for they'll be distributing the film. And maybe that was influenced in part by the huge success of their My Love, Do Not Cross That River.
Of course.
Last year, which was a documentary about an elderly couple living in the countryside. And this is a different type of story, but it's also about two women living together in the countryside in their old age. But quite an unusual story because the younger woman was actually brought in by the husband as a concubine, since the wife was not able to produce a son. The husband brought her in as a way to produce an heir. And then the husband died, but this really interesting relationship and kind of strong bond developed between the two women. And so later in their life, they're living by themselves, and it shows them kind of just what their daily lives are like, and also it talks to them about their experiences. And so I think this is a documentary that may kind of capture some attention, and I think that ordinary viewers can probably really find a lot of interest in it.
It's enormously engaging. He's such a fascinating characters.
Yeah.
It was I found it very compelling. One film that I liked, I don't know if you had a chance to see it yet, was Island by Park Jin-sung.
I didn't get to see Island yet, but it's on my list of films to see.
This is it's a black and white film. I mean, it's certainly an art house mystery kind of somewhat ghostly thing going on there, but it's a very beautiful film. It's kind of like limpid and just this really kind of graceful air. And I'm curious to see if that will get any exposure. Really, just I was very taken with it. It was I wouldn't say it was completely successful, but it's so engaging and just really easy to get lost in. So that was one of my top ones this year. All right, I think that's all the time we have for today. But and so anyway, we have lots of films that we talked about today, and thank you very much for taking the time, as always, to share your insights.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our second season of Korean Cinema Today for Kofik. So we'll be back in a few months. We talked about plenty of new films today, new films that are hitting the festival circuit, films that are coming out in big commercial releases here in Korea. And so hopefully you'll get a chance to see a lot of these interesting films in the coming months before we kick off the next season of Korean Cinema Today. So thank you very much, and please be sure once again to check out koreanfilm.or.kr for the latest and best in Korean film. You can also connect with us on social media. On Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/kobiz.kofik. That's KOBIZ.KOFIC. And also on Twitter, where our handle is @KoreanFilmBiz. That's BIZ. So thank you very much, and have a great summer.